With Valentine's Day right around the corner, I'm going to cover a fun and intentional way to level up not only your relationship, but your financial life with your partner. My husband and I have been married for 10 years, and we became millionaires at 31 and 32 as a PA and construction manager. So we know a thing or two about getting on the same page with money and making sure that 1 + 1 = 4 through the value of teamwork. I'm going to talk about what a money date structure can look like so that you can implement the exact same thing for yourself. First off, when do you do it? Most likely, this should be done once a quarter or 4 times a year with a longer session on an annual basis. This is best done in a place with 0 distractions where you're not likely to be, oh, that laundry needs done, or there's a kiddo in the background saying, mommy, 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 right? If your house is anything like ours. And so this is something we often like to do away from our house for like 60 to 90 minutes. Usually accompanied by some solid snacks and or wine, as long as one of us is not pregnant, which is not currently the case, in an environment that we both find relaxing and fun. If you set the vibe, you can create a situation where you're fostering teamwork and camaraderie rather than, we're talking about money, stress, spreadsheets, right? When you actually kick off, you need to set the agenda for what's going to be covered. The very first thing you should do is celebrate a win. Even if you've kind of been sucking with money lately, there should be at least one thing you can celebrate that you guys have intentionally done. Even if it's as simple as, hey, we called and we renegotiated our internet bill and we saved $5 a month, right? That's a money win. You should celebrate it, and it's always best to kick off with the celebration of something. The next step is to look at intentionally where you are. This means getting real with what's been going on with money. If you already have a budget in your household, this is pretty easy to do. Take a look at the last month's budgets and figure out some key questions, right? How much money did we put towards our financial progress? When I say financial progress, I'm counting money that went to investments, money that went to savings, money that went to extra debt payments, not the minimum payment. Look at your financial progress and then look at, hey, what are their big key spending areas for our household? It doesn't mean they have to change. Like for us, travel tends to be a big one. We have no intention of changing that. But acknowledging where a lot of the money is going in your household is an important step to making any kind of financial change if one needs to be made. The next thing to do after you look at where things are by going through cash flow statements is to figure out where that should be in conjunction to your goals. Now, if you've already been intentional as a couple, you might already have a written plan on paper of what you're doing with money and what your goals are for the year. If that's you, you're like top 5%er, congratulate yourself, pat on the back, right? That's pretty uncommon. But if you happen to be one of those people that already has a plan on paper, this can be as simple as going back and go, okay, for this to be true for the year for 2025, we're approximately 25% of the way in, right? If it were the end of Q1. And so we should be 25% of the way to said goal. Are we there? If not, how do we course correct? If you don't have a plan on paper, now's the time to start putting something in writing of what you intend to do with money. The key thing is to develop the goals in order of true financial priority. What I see most common is that someone will sit down with their partner and go, okay, let's make a list of financial goals. And they put something about debt on there, and they put some stuff about savings, normally for short or intermediate term needs, like, okay, we wanted to replace the car, we want to go on vacation, let's save some money for those things, and then they're done. And so even though they feel like they're being intentional with money, they wake up in 10 years and go, well, whoops, we can never retire because we haven't been building any investable assets in the background. Oops, right? So when you're actually creating your goals, you need to go through them in a specific order. The first thing that should always be prioritized is high interest debt. If you have any credit card debt, any high interest personal loans, these have to go at the top of your goals list. You can't ignore those. Those are far more important than any short-term savings goals that you have. The next thing to address when making your goals is investing. And I would actually prioritize that above debt and above short-term savings goals, because most people do not recognize until it is way too late that they are way behind in replacing their current inflation-adjusted income as a medical professional. And so if you don't push that up, it gets put in the back burner. It gets put in the category of important but never urgent. You never address it, and you just keep focusing on the next short-term thing, the next vacation, the next car, right? And then you look up, and again, 20 years down the line, you're like, oh my gosh, shoot, I'm working until I'm 82. If you actually put that as number 2 in your goal setting list, then the rest of it can kind of fall into place behind it. If you move past that, you establish what your investing goal is as a household, then you can start looking at the debt goals and the savings goals. And a lot of times for medical professionals, debt goals look different than most other folks. For a lot of American households, debt goals looks like addressing car loans, addressing kind of these smaller dollar amount consumer type of debt. But for medical professionals, addressing the debt looks like $100,000 of student loan debt, $200,000, $300,000. And so you have to take a whole new lens to that. I get asked all the time, like, well, should I pay more or should I pay less to my loans given XYZ? The answer is there's about 1,000 other options besides pay more or pay less when it's federal student loans in question. And so if that's you, before you start setting your debt payoff goals, you might want to watch some of my content on student loan strategy and make sure you're not missing the elephant in the room when figuring out your plan. Then that last piece you get to build in is short-term savings goals. These are things like, do we have our full emergency fund in place? Do we have, the fund for the car, the fund for the vacation, that type of thing? I have it in this specific order for a reason, because if you're not prioritizing high interest debt and investing to build wealth in the background, you can allow these short-term goals to supersede everything else, have these money dates, feel really good about being on the same page, and get nowhere with money. Now, this is a perfect time to check in with your net worth statement. If you have one, mine looks something like this, and go, are we growing? Right? I wouldn't update my net worth statement more frequently than quarterly, and some folks do it on a biannual or annual basis. That's totally fine. But when you're having these money dates, that's a great time to touch base and go, have we made forward progress? Are we pushing our net worth up either by reducing liabilities or increasing assets? If you're not, if you're just treading water and there's no real growth, it's time to go back to the beginning of the date, look at those cash flow statements, figure out why. The answer every single time will be that your progress dollars are too small, meaning the total percent of your income that's going towards those extra needle mover things, right? Investing, saving, extra debt payments is too small. And so you end up running the hedonic treadmill, never seeing that change in your net worth statement, despite working really, really hard. Now, once you have celebrated something, checked in on where you're at for the last 90 days in terms of ins and outs, cash flow for your house, and then looked at where are we in comparison to our goals, this is the time to do some fun goal setting, right? Like, are we creating the life that we want? Is there something missing? Do we want to work as long as we're projected to work? Do we want to find creative ways to increase our income? Should we be looking at side hustles? Should we be looking at investment real estate? Is there some other piece financially that we want to bring into our house that suits our needs and puts us closer to our goals? One of the most important questions you can ask together is what do I want life to look like in like 30 or 40 years? Do I envision still working at 65? Do you not? Do I envision a retirement where we go to like 17 countries a year and you're envisioning an RV and a campground and never moving the thing? Those conversations really actually drive financial planning. And a lot of folks never have them. You kind of operate, life gets busy, especially if you have little kids. You operate moving in the same world now, never really paying attention to whether or not you're planning the same world for the future. And so having those conversations can bring up some awkward things, but also will really get you on the same page in terms of vision casting, what's next, and where you guys want to go as a couple. If you actually do these things and you do them every 90 days in a money date fashion, and you approach the conversation with love, kindness, compassion, respect, you leave all the blame game at home, right? And you come into it going, how can I be better? And by me being better, I'll make the team better. And you both do that. It's almost impossible for you not to be successful. The only instance when that can happen is if you're one of those folks who misorders the goals, who puts investing or wealth building at the bottom, focuses way too much on short-term needs, and never gets past that. If you keep those goals in the right order, you do this intentionally every 90 days. Once a year, you sit down and you do a whole goal session, plan on paper, what's our investing rate, what's our asset allocation, what assets do we want to invest in as a whole, what's the debt strategy, you write it out. You're kind of on fire, right? There's not much that can actually stop two people who are after the same thing, are both willing to work and sacrifice, and both have a shared vision of what they're working towards. The key is getting yourself in that spot. And that's the tricky part. I'm not saying it's easy, but I've been doing it for 10 years. I've had a little bit of practice, and I'm telling you that this practice is 1,000% worth it. So as you go into Valentine's Day, do the fun stuff, do the roses, do the whatever, but think about a money date as a way to take your relationship beyond just the romantic level to like true teamwork, collaborative force, moving towards a shared vision, because that is the next level for any relationship.